The following message is being transmitted at the request of the Boundless PodTrap movie review and the guys of the BPT. What you are about to hear contains spoilers to movies. If you don't want to hear these spoilers, please disengage your listening device at this time. If you can't handle those with a possible differing view on a movie, you may also want to disengage your listening device at this time. Stay tuned for a movie review that only the guys at the Boundless PodTrap can give you.
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
Welcome, everyone, to the BPT Movie Podcast. I am your host, Lonnie. With me, as always, are my misters from different sisters. Yeah, like that one?
Why'd you do this spooky intro?
Because this movie is fantastic. I got Jeremy and Justin with me. Gee, see that, guys? We didn't fuck up the intro this time.
I didn't.
Oh,
That's what I'm saying. Thank you.
it's an easy one.
I feel like he's blaming me for something.
Oh, boys, tonight's going to be a good one.
Is it, though?
I hope so. I was so apprehensive on doing this movie.
Why?
Because I told myself when we were talking about starting this podcast and we were putting down ideas that I wasn't going to do this movie because it's my favorite movie of all time.
You're sensitive to it.
And it's not that I'm sensitive to it. It's the fact that I wasn't going to be able to put negatives to it.
You don't want our ideas
I think we can help you. No.
You don't want our ideas to corrupt your.
Well, no, it's
childhood.
not even that. There's nothing anyone can say that's going to make this movie not the best movie of all time for me.
Well, it's just like you shit on Alpha Dog last time.
Well, and that's a good thing about it too. Like, I'm going to respect your opinions, just like you respected my opinion last week or last episode, I hope.
Until we left your house.
Oh, yeah. And then you were in the driveway. I could hear him like, that's fucking mean. But no. And
You heard that?
well, as much as you guys could hear me fucking beating my meat the second you walked out the door, I was like, whoop, freedom.
You started before we left.
Yeah, it's true.
You start dinner late.
But I finally decided that, if we all have our loves for movies, so I decided that we are, in fact, going to talk about the 1986 Stand By Me.
Well, let me ask you this. Why do you assume that we're going to hate this movie?
I didn't. I just didn't want it.
I don't. Bullshit.
He just assumes his
everything.
rating is going to be higher than ours because it's his favorite movie.
Well, there's nothing I'm not going to be that. The movie could be better with this. All I'm going to do is sit and gush about this. Like, I would never put a whole bunch of women in a room and go, say something negative about my dick. They just couldn't do it.
This is
Let's
true.
put this to the test. We're a couple blocks away from a strip club.
In Council Bluffs, Iowa. The quality is immense.
Well, I guess let's have you read the synopsis and everything.
Like I said before, this is the 1986 classic Stand By Me, directed by Rob Reiner, based on the novella written by Stephen King, The Body. After the death of one of his childhood friends, a writer recounts the childhood journey with his friends to find the body of a missing boy. Boys, obviously you know my opinion on the movie. I've stated it many times in the intro. I talked about this movie ad nauseum in conversations we've had. What's your opinions on it? Scale of 1 to 10.
Ratings right now?
Yeah.
What is your rating first?
Well, are you fucking
Did you
kidding me?
Did you say 10?
Yeah.
1 out of 10. I'd give
It wouldn't be a BPT movie review without a 10.
962.
Over 900,000.
So for me, I had not seen this movie in well over 20 years. I didn't remember. I mean, I have vague memories of it because I was probably 10 the last time I saw it. So it was kind of interesting to watch it again. I don't know. Sometimes when you haven't seen a movie for so long, you kind of think of other movies. And
Right.
there was a lot of things that I thought happened in this movie that must have been another movie that I saw a long time ago that came out around the same time.
Don't do that.
Yeah. But I can't really say that this movie blew me away. I think a lot more could have been done with this movie, which I will get into kind of later with the what would you change about it. But it wasn't a bad movie. So I'm going to give this right in the middle of 5.
Okay.
Can't say anything too negative about it, but I can't like really boast about it so much either. So I'm going to give it a 5.
Sounds good.
Me?
Yep.
I'm the only one left, huh?
Yeah.
Okay, that's how that works. All right, figured that out. I really like this movie, primarily because it did bring me back to a simpler time. It's so easy to let the movie absorb you. I had like cousins and stuff I used to hang out with, where it was like backwoods type of lives. You know, they lived like in a little woodland area, and it kind of just took me back to those days, just joshing off of each other. And yeah, the synopsis of it, I don't know if the synopsis really worked well for me. It works well for the movie. And I think it's just the interactions between the kids, the boys. It was so easy to just put myself into there. I have to give it an 8. It's not middle of the road. It's not the best movie out there for myself, but it reminds me of not necessarily better times, but better times with obstacles, challenges, the initial discovery of what it means to be somebody yourself, to arrive at your own opinions, kind of coming out of a shell.
Right. Well, it's the quintessential coming of age story. Like there's certain movies that are that coming of age story, that true, like starting from really the beginning with your friends and developing who you are through a journey, and then that narrator character at the end kind of finishing your life. And
I put it up to like a foggy mirror, and then you're just kind of wiping it off. It's like, fuck, this is me. Like,
right.
You know, they're finally, there's so much that they don't necessarily realize about themselves until it's just later. You're like,
Right.
holy shit, yeah, okay, I can see that.
Yeah.
Now, I know I said I don't have like a lot of negative things to say, but I feel like I'm going to have to be the devil's advocate kind of.
No, absolutely.
With this thing. And this thing, I mean, there's a few things I don't know, I just couldn't get into. Like Teddy, Corey Feldman's character.
Yeah.
When they get chased out of that junkyard or whatever it is and climb the fence, how he went from like joking around and that to like going to kill that guy because of like how he's talking about his dad. It's like that to me, that wasn't believable. I didn't think that a kid would react that way, especially him who's like really didn't know his dad that much or whatever.
Right.
But I mean,
Not only that, but his dad was a sensitive subject, and just using the words like loony or loser or crazy,
Loony,
like it sets him off.
Right.
And I mean, I've knew kids who just overreacted over the smallest things, and
well, and it's
and
not,
plus it's just
I just think
it's him.
I think his character in general just wasn't developed that well, because they're all walking along the train tracks, and then all of a sudden that train comes and he's playing chicken with it. Like he didn't care if he died. And it's like, where the fuck did that come from? Like why all of a sudden did you, and then you're getting in a fight with your friends. And to me, I just think that character was kind of all over the place and didn't really make sense that he was.
Right. Well, if you think about the dichotomy of the four main characters, the Wil Wheaton is Gordy, who's obviously the sensitive one.
Mm-hmm.
And you can almost say he's the main-ish character of the story.
I want to put him as the sensitive one, but I mean, like he was the more revealing, but I don't think he was the most sensitive.
I wouldn't. Sensitive I would say isn't the best term out, but has the most depth.
Yeah.
So he has the most feeling in him, especially with the loss of his brother.
Kind of.
And
I think Chris is probably the more in tune with his, like he has more. He tries to put on the facade for his friends. He tries to be the leader because nobody has to. He needs to step up to the plate because he has been roughed up enough.
Chris has the most adult tendencies. He's
Right.
the one who's had definitely the hardest life.
Right.
He's the one who
him and
Teddy. Yeah.
Teddy was beat by his dad, or his his drunk ass dad.
Yeah, got his head held to the stove. But yeah, Chris Chambers, played by the late River Phoenix, definitely held the character of the protector.
Yeah.
Like protected his friends. Corey Feldman, the Teddy Teddy Duchamp. Definitely a wild card. And the suicidal thing, I think, was less of wanting to be suicidal, but was more as that very pro-war, very pro-World War II. So I think it was less of a suicide and more of a look how brave I am.
Yeah, he wanted
because he wanted to do the train dodge. He wanted to see how quick he could get out of the way.
He needed to prove something to himself mainly because as much as he wanted to be acknowledged by his dad, he wasn't acknowledged, not necessarily, or even accepted.
Right.
So to prove something to his close friends who do see him as an equal was important to him.
Right. And if you look at what happened with the guy at the junkyard, it almost is like Stockholm syndrome a little bit. Like his dad was nothing but a prick to him. And all he had really was his mom. So
But he did have his dad's story of serving, being a soldier.
And when that was attacked, he instantly went on the defensive because that's all he has left and that's all he knows. But even though the person was terrible to him, that memory and that pride is what pushed him through.
I think the pride is weakness.
Right.
And in a lot of cases when it's just overly, when there's no grounding to it, it's like it's good to be proud of something, to have a little bit of pride about it, but to have it be your serving nature, that's going to be your downfall.
Right.
And that's what was his, so yeah.
And then the oafish, the fourth one of the group, the oafish, chubby Jerry O'Connell.
I love Jerry O'Connell.
Totally didn't even realize that was him until like doing research on this. I'm like, oh shit.
I
didn't realize how much I really like Jerry O'Connell and almost everything that he does. Like, well, most everything. There's certain things that was like flops. I'm like,
Yeah. But in this movie, he played that perfect, like, tag-along friend. He's really not good for much.
I would say he's the most sensitive out of the group.
I can see that being sensitive, but he is the one who's just there for fun. Like, you're going to get the least out of him.
Yeah. I don't know if I would say most sensitive. Again, I'd still put Chris, because the way that Chris, like Rivers Phoenix, when he broke down, I was like, fuck. And Gordy didn't even cry at his brother's funeral. So I didn't think that he was like sensitive. He was still trying, he was putting his little feelers out there to attach to something.
Right.
Like he didn't know what was what. Like he was like, am I weird? Like, seriously, do you think I'm weird? And like he was trying to just find some sort of sense of self. And that's what the goal of the movie was to find that body to actually become something.
Right. To get on the TV. So, and the rest of the cast in this film, rewatching it, and I watch it probably once a year. Kiefer Sutherland, Bradley Gregory,
what was
Richard Dreyfuss,
Gordy, his brother. What was that actor's name? I forget what.
John Cusack.
Yes, like that was such a small role for him. But at the time, was this like when he was just breaking out, or had he been?
He's been in some other stuff by then, but you got to think. So this was a Rob Reiner movie. And from that decade, when this movie came out, from like 1984 to 1994, like that stretch, Rob Reiner was the guy. If you could get in a Rob Reiner film, you were pretty much made.
Well, this was the movie that made him.
No.
I feel.
No.
If you listen to interviews with him,
absolutely,
he said that this was like something completely different than he had ever done. And that he feels like this was the movie that people finally looked at him and made him who he was.
Well, so I got the list. 1984, he made This Is Spinal Tap. 1985, he made The Sure Thing. 1986, he made Stand By Me. 1987, he made The Princess Bride. Took 1998 off, or 1988 off. In 1989, he made When Harry Met Sally. In 1990, he made Misery. In 1992, he made A Few Good Men. And then in 1994, he made North, which got nominated for 6 Razzies and Worst Film of the Year in 1995. So other than North, he had one of the best runs of a decade of movies being made. So as much as I love Stand By Me, I mean, there's some other super heavy hitters in there.
Well, I mean, I'm just going by what he said in the interview.
Absolutely.
Like he said that Stand By Me was definitely something different. It was something that his dad wouldn't have even wanted to do. And so he thought he would take the steps and make a movie like this. And he said at the time, after they made the movie, they did a private screening for Stephen King.
Yeah.
And at the time,
He said
Stephen
it
King
was
pulled him
one of
aside.
the more poor parts.
Yeah. So this is one of the best film adaptations of one of his novels that he had
said,
ever seen.
Fuck Pet Cemetery.
And like,
Hey, watch your tongue over there, boy.
And Rob said he was so nervous that he thought that because like after the movie, Stephen King walked out of the room and didn't say anything, and he's like, "Fuck," he didn't like it. But then that's when he came back in and told him like best thing. And so,
Right.
I mean, to have Stephen King tell you something like that is honor in itself.
Yeah, because he's had like 323 of movies made, I think it was. I looked at his list. And when you think of this movie, if you're not a super huge fan of this movie and you just have seen it a couple times or talk about it, this movie's known for basically 2, maybe 3 scenes is synonymous with this movie. It's the leech scene where all the kids go swimming and get covered in leeches. The pie eating scene, which eat it. Yep, that scene. Yes. See the Boundless PodTrap for reference there. And the finding of the body scene. Like those 3 scenes are basically what this movie is known for. But this movie has so much, like if you break it down and just all the scenes with the kids, Wil Wheaton and River Phoenix are basically one part and Corey Feldman and Jerry O'Connell are another part. And when they're together, you can definitely tell the difference in Stephen King's writing because the Gordy and Chris are having these existential conversations of like life and growing and how they're going to be. And in that same moment, Teddy and Vern are back here just
talking about
goofing off and
Mighty
having
Mouse
a good
and
time.
Superman, those types of
Right,
yeah.
like what kids do. So you can see that difference in age and mentality. Basically watching yourself grow and watching yourself stay still. And a lot of that, like at the end when the narrator's going through what happens in their life, you can see that difference. How their lives unfold has a lot to do with their mentality as children and how they pan out. And it's just amazing.
I like the diversity of like all of the boys are kind of experiencing issues with their family life.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yet they create a bond or a family with just each other. And they're just different avenues and something I think most anybody can relate to at one or many time of their life, I guess, or in their young age, in their youth. It's like, who would you say was you growing up?
Well, I'm definitely not River Phoenix's character. I'm definitely not Corey Feldman's character.
I feel like my
my
brother was a big Corey Feldman character.
I think I could have been along the Vern side of things because he was kind of, I don't want to say the scaredy cat of the group, but he kind of was. I mean, like when the train's coming at him, he just kind of gave up. He curled into a ball on the track and he was going to let the train run him over. I think he was kind of scared to take some chances. And I think I was kind of that way. I mean, I took chances as a kid, but I think a lot of my friends were more of the daredevils. And I was kind of like, we shouldn't do that type of thing. And
I'll get a scratch.
yeah, well,
I brought the comb.
but
I guess I would probably also say I'm more of like a Vern and Gordy clash.
yeah, I'd say I'm
I was
kind
a
of
fat
part
kid
Gordy.
growing up, so
I wasn't fat.
I like how you both look at me. Yeah. I am now. I get it. So what about the Cobras? What'd you guys think of the Cobras?
they're nothing without Kiefer Sutherland.
Really? Yeah, he was definitely the head of the group. But even Eyeball Chambers, he played that crony role very well. That soft spoken, that like
Yeah, I wonder like if he would play that role well, or the character himself, not the actor himself. I wonder if the character himself would play that role without the company of Kiefer. So I always say Reefer.
He's looking over at you while you talk right now. The Lost Boys poster.
Yeah, without his presence there, I wonder if he would still go as far as he does. I mean, like he took the hat. That's the older brother of Chris.
yeah.
So, and I don't think he had any qualms of putting his brother down.
I think Ace was the only good part about that. The rest of the gang, I just thought, I mean, they
Like the two guys who were kind of scared, like, should we go with? Like,
Right.
they
I mean, Yeah, they weren't very intimidating. The only one that was Ace.
They're only intimidating because it's a bigger group.
Right.
Right.
But that kind of like gets to,
Strength in numbers.
I thought the ending was kind of, when they found the body, it was kind of like, all right, we're there. This is what the whole movie's been about. And then it's just like, oh, that's it. Okay, we're done with the scene, and nothing really happened. Like, I think Ace pussied out, and yeah, he said,
he had a gun to him.
I'm never going to forget this or whatever, and walks away. And it's like, well, apparently he did, because nothing happened later on with it. It's just like, I don't know. I felt that there should have been more to it. And
I think
again, I'll get more into that with the what would you have done differently?
Because the boys didn't take claim of the prize, and that way that the Cobras didn't also get their claim to fame.
Yeah, but if you're a badass, you don't care. I mean, you only care about getting the fame from it, and whether they took it or not, I still think like, oh, that's kind of a pussy thing.
I think also that could have also exposed the pussiness of Ace in front of his clan, in front of his gang. It's like Gordy was the one who kind of stepped up and point the weapon to him. I thought that was
that was a Rob Reiner switch. In the original script, it was supposed to be
Chris
that pulled the gun, but Rob Reiner thought that it would be more impactful if
Chris
Gordy did. Yeah. And that was actually one thing Stephen King commended him on too. He's like, that was a great call to do that.
I think that works better too, because the person who's supposed to be the leader of the boys, Chris, and he's kind of shaking at this point when the boys show up to try to take their claim. The contrast to both of that, to them, the groups arriving at the body, it's like the boys didn't have to they discovered a lot about themselves. They not only explored the terrain, but they explored the background, who they are, how they are, what got them to where they are, and they've arrived at the body, while the Cobras just drove there. They took all the shortcuts they can. They didn't really learn anything. And they learned that they were bitches at the end. But no, and for Gordy to step up, point the gun, finger on the trigger, even just that warning shot, it kind of gave him a little bit of a power. I mean, that was the second time he shot the weapon. First time in the beginning when Chris was saying it wasn't loaded. And Chris laughed about that. But here Chris is shaken because he was a lot of support. Not saying that it degraded from his character, but it showed that he was not above the boys, but that he was still of the boys.
I think that one thing that should have happened was Gordy, when he had the gun pointed, he should have got his hat back.
Yeah, they should have came back to that. I love wraparounds.
Yeah.
Reach around.
I mean, yeah. That would have just been like pouring salt on the open wound to them, and just kind of a feel-good moment for you, the viewer at home.
Yeah.
I feel like, because Chris was saying, leave it alone, let's go. I feel like Chris could have got the hat back easily because it's going to be at his house.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the movie is more about the journey and less about the outcome.
Yeah.
And I think when Stephen King initially wrote it, it was more about the development of the boys and less about the story. And I think Rob Reiner and the writers of the screenplay kind of held very true to that. I think they could have completely cut out the Cobras, and I think they even could have completely cut out the whole body aspect of it. Just had kids going to camp or just going from point A to point B, and you still would have got a great coming-of-age tale.
Yeah.
Throwing that extra in there put a little bit more depth into why that I can't say isn't necessarily not needed, but took characters who weren't necessarily needed and gave them a reason to be there. I think without the body, you can justify not having Vern in the group. So that's the only real reason why Vern's in the group. He didn't get an emotional breakdown like everybody else did. He really got hardly any of a backstory other than he was under the porch looking for his pennies and he heard about the body. Like, that was really the only point he was in the movie, was to get that information. The two skittish Cobras were only in the movie to pass along that information. It gave characters a reason to be in the film, which is sometimes necessary.
There was a scene with the Cobras that I thought was kind of funny, where the radio comes on, you know, like, well, right before it plays Lollipop, it's playing like a little voiceover. Yeah. And it stops. The whole radio stops for a good conversation between the boys before it starts back up. Like, and here's Lollipop, Lollipop, Lollipop. Why was there a huge break in silence before a song came on?
That's your job to figure that out.
Sound design, baby.
Well, I think part of why I was struggling to make this movie more than just an average movie is knowing it's a Stephen King story. I'm expecting the weird twist or something crazy to go on, and it just didn't happen. Like, you know, with the body.
That is the twist.
Yeah, well, but the thing is, like, you're expecting something different. Like, when they get to the body, something different's going to happen. And it would make more sense what I'm saying. I might as well just tell what I would have done differently now. Because to me, I felt like, and I know you guys said that this movie's about the journey getting there, which could be, but, you know, for those of us that like a little bit more spice in our movies and action in it, like, I think that it was such a long journey to get to the body for little to no payoff when they get to the body, and no other, like, mountains that they have to climb or whatever. And I think, to me, I feel like they should have got to the body earlier, and what could have made it more interesting and more of a Stephen King type of story to me would have been Gordy pointing the gun at Ace,
shooting his fucking head off.
Not intending to shoot him, but ended up shooting him by accident and killing him. And now they have two bodies that they have to deal with.
One more body.
And that's, and that's, to me, that's where my mind was this whole time. I'm waiting for something like that to happen.
Just pull him up to the tracks.
It didn't happen. And I think there's a lot of pointless characters and things in this movie to where it kept my attention, but it didn't grasp my attention to where I'm like, oh my God, like, I'm so drawn to this. So I don't know. I feel like there should have been something else that happened.
And that might be the product of seeing the Stephen King name attached to it.
Absolutely.
And a lot of people go in with that connotation that it is a Stephen King movie. They're expecting horror. They're expecting over-the-top stuff. But a lot of Stephen King's best movies are non-horror. Like, Stephen King also wrote The Green Mile. Stephen King also wrote Shawshank Redemption. So he does write great, but just not all the time. It's going to be about blood and guts and horror.
It's like his name is synonymous with horror, and it's kind of like seeing the actors that are like Jim Carrey in 23.
Absolutely.
It will take you out at first until you can kind of get into it, and you're like, okay, well, he's actually doing pretty decent.
It took me out, and I was out the whole time.
It's like going to a 3D movie where you're wearing the glasses, and then, like, for the first 10 to 20 minutes, you're just, like, lifting the glasses up and putting them back down
like,
and lifting them up.
Blurry,
it's like, okay.
still blurry. Or the trailers aren't in 3D and the movie is in 3D.
How does that work for you?
I can't go to 3D movies. I can go to the new ones because they're not color-based. But, yeah, I can't go to them. I just don't. I won't pay the money.
Going back to, like, the journey, one of the overall symbol in this movie, don't.
What? I'm legit.
There we go.
I'm legitimately yawning because it's late.
No, the overall symbol in this movie is probably like the train tracks. And it, like Lonnie was saying, it's a coming of age movie. The tracks symbolize a path or a measurement of life, and it shows where you are going. And looking back, you can kind of see it. It shows where you have been. And the boys were off to prove something to others as well as themselves, that they aren't the dorks or the losers that everybody keeps on saying that they are. The train represents death or danger, and when you hear the train whistle and scream, it can kind of be like a scary sound. And yeah, Corey Feldman, he likes to dance with death. Like, he was kind of on the brink of, well, not necessarily on the brink, but he doesn't take it seriously. So he was kind of dancing with the train there. The lights flash and the safety guard rails dropped, indicating the danger as a cross stop. And the cross stop is the beaten path. That's pretty much what everybody follows. And that's what, like, the Cobras, they were taking the road, and these guys are taking the trails. They're cutting into the fields, and they chose to go off the beaten path and carve their own journeys.
They talk about it when they're first starting the journey, about we could take the tracks and be there in X amount of days, 2 days, or they can take this road and it'd be 20 miles. And they do that ominous look down the tracks where it's just that focal point that's just a long journey. And they decide to take the tracks. Like,
I was wanting to count how many times it shows the tracks, but it's like, it's probably stupid.
Yeah.
I'm already this far into it.
It's just, that's the choice, and that's the choice they make as a group, and that's like the basic start of their progression to becoming adults. I think that's the line where like they're leaving behind their childhood and coming back together, and that's really the end of their innocence.
The running away from the train, not the full-on face-first one, but the one from afar. It was actually girls who were the stunt doubles of...
Really?
Yeah.
Huh. That's interesting.
Well, not little girls.
Well,
but,
yeah, I didn't think you meant like 12-year-old girls. Like, hey, you girls you want a job?
Highlighting.
Want to jump off?
I did want to know from your take, Jeremy, how was your anxiety when Teddy was going over the boards, looking straight down to the water?
Oh, Vern. Yeah, where he drops his comb.
Yeah.
It didn't bother me so much.
No, fuck that noise.
I don't know. I mean, to me, I don't think it was... They didn't capture the height to where it would give me anxiety. Like, I didn't feel like they were that high off the ground. So it didn't bother me much. I mean, there was a little bit of anxiety as like you see some of the shots that they did when the train was approaching them were like, oh my God, that's on their fucking heels. Like, that's just crazy.
Yeah, that was just a lens technique.
Yeah. But that didn't bother me so much.
I think the most dangerous scene in this is the chicken part that Ace was doing. Like, right when that vehicle with the logs passing, I mean, that was a Final Destination movie right there. But right when that passed, like, the logs fell off. I'm like, those are the actors driving that. And, like, they're missing those logs. Like, that was fucking dangerous.
Yeah.
That was a risk right
One
there.
of those could have went through the windshield super easy.
So by Kiefer Sutherland, Reefer Sutherland?
Reefer Sutherland. As they finish their journey, they find the body, they cover up the body, they go... They make their way back to the town. Everybody leaves. They go their opposite ways. Vern finds a penny.
I thought he was going to get hit by a car. If I'm being completely honest with you.
That was the last time I saw it.
That was.
Hey guys, a bit.
He bends over. He's like $1, and he dies.
The train finally comes by.
The train barrels by. They all kind of get their story. Their story ends there, with the exception of Gordy's story. It all ends there.
It's kind of a sad thing. Like, you guys ever go to summer school and then you make friends with somebody and then that's the last time you saw them? It's like...
No, I actually was smart and did get... No, I'm just kidding.
I was so good in school that they asked me to come to summer school.
That's kind of what I was going to ask earlier too, is like, you know, Gordy talks about how after that...
Friends just drift apart.
Yeah, and it's just kind of weird because if they went through that much together, it's like, was it this journey that caused them to split apart or what?
Yeah, but it's also because they're exploring themselves as well. Like, that Labor Day weekend, they were like the best of friends. And then you do have like those friends where you look back and like both of you guys or girls or whoever, you don't necessarily reach out. You're just like, wow, man, that was... Man... You just think about it. You reminisce.
Yeah. Like at 12, like how many friends did you have when you were 12 years old that you still have now?
Every single one of them.
Every single one.
Just kidding.
Both of them.
No.
But like, I mean,
my mom's still my friend.
My mom's my best friend. Yeah. But I mean, like seriously, at that age though, like I think I have one friend that I still keep in contact with. I had when I was that young, and that's all my friends.
If we're going like 12 years old, I don't talk to anybody that I was friends with back then.
Yeah, and I think that's what they were trying to emphasize, like, because they were going into middle school, they were all splitting up, going their own ways, like that.
And they were even worried about splitting up. It's like we're not gonna be friends, or you're not gonna remember me.
Well, that was a big dissension between Chris and Gordy, as Gordy was talking about just going and being in classes with them, and Chris chewed his ass about how he had a gift and he should use it. And in the end, Chris actually went above and beyond trying to go to college with Gordy and how it was hard on him, but he did it. Became a lawyer.
It's like he rose out of his family. It's like, man, that breakdown scene of Chris where he's talking about he was blamed of stealing something even though, like...
The milk money,
Yeah. It's like just because he has the name, he's automatically deemed as a loser.
But then he's like, "Did you take the money?" He's like, "Yeah, I did." So,
fuck yeah.
Well, it was
Playboys ain't free.
It's for a good cause.
His brother, Eyeball Chambers, was Philip from Nightmare on Elm Street 3. Little nugget of factoid. So we heard a little bit about what you would change. What else would you want to change in this movie?
My biggest thing was adding something, some other kind of plot twist or just something. Like these kids had a gun, and it's like somebody should have got and maybe if one of them like carrying the gun, it would probably be more Vern that carrying the gun, being careless with it, and have it go off and like maybe shoot himself in the foot or whatever. And now it's like they're far into this journey and their friend's bleeding out. So, I mean, they have to do whatever to try to save him. And, you know, they can grow from this thing that happened to them. And, you know, with them being so far away, it's like their friend could die. Right. I mean, just something like, you know, we know that they wanted to go see this body, but it's like, what if they didn't get to this body? What if they were almost there and then something else happened to prevent them from getting to the body? Now it's just like, I don't know, just something along those lines. Cause like I said, it wasn't a bad movie. And I know that sounds weird with everything I'm saying, but I mean, it was a movie. Right. And I think that a lot more could have been done to it. I mean, who am I to say that? Look at the popularity of this movie, fucking almost 40 years later. We're approaching 36 years later. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of what I would do. I would just add a little something else.
Spice it up a little bit.
Yeah. I was going to ask you if there was something, you know, with the way that Chris does die, where he's older and he breaks up a fight and gets stabbed in the neck. Is there meaning behind the way that he died to you?
No, I think more for the actors themselves, it was kind of more meat to that one. Like Wil Wheaton, he did kind of go into his character. He did become a actor. Rivers Phoenix was the first of all of them to die. Chris and Vern, Jerry O'Connell, like he was the happy-go-lucky guy, and that is Jerry O'Connell. Like he found that lucky penny and made more accomplishments than the rest, and he married Rebecca Romaine. And Corey Feldman, who played Teddy, he did have a bad ear, so making crappy music. He had a fucked up family situation. He's doing odd jobs, all these stuff, and he even got into the army, or got his own army. Sorry, with his Corey Feldman army of band members. But no, as far as like,
he's no longer listening to our podcast.
Sorry, Corey. We still have.
Do your best Corey Feldman impression.
Hey.
Hey.
Sorry. Nope, that's not it.
Sounds like a fucking like New York carpet king.
Corey Feldman, like he gets a lot of shit. He's kind of no. I shouldn't probably put him up with Pauly Shore. Pauly Shore is probably a little bit better. But
fuck you,
Corey Feldman. Like
I can't believe you compared Corey Feldman to Pauly Shore.
So
and Corey Feldman's the one who got
Why
knocked
did
out
those
of
two
peg.
never do a movie together?
I don't know.
The fucking Hollywood missed the boat on
with
that
Carrot
one.
Top.
God.
Fucking Brendan Fraser picking up the back end.
Corey Feldman was in a lot of shit.
Yeah, he was.
He's a huge
and dude, I love like
catalog of
he
movies.
was. Well, like Dream a Little Dream.
Movie's
like,
fan-fucking-tastic.
I love that. I was a huge
So
Michael
good.
Jackson fan, and how he rode. Okay, I shouldn't say that.
Oh no. Yeah.
Dream a Little Dream, man. That movie, like that would be a movie that we should cover just so like here you have the next 40 minutes to tell everyone what Dream a Little Dream's about.
Amazing. I love that movie. And
do I.
it's pretty much The Notebook, like just not as
But like not as
Sappy.
good. It doesn't make nearly as much sense.
I mean, Corey Feldman, he plays like such great supporting roles, like just like in
Lost
the
Boys,
Burbs with Tom Hanks, like the pizza dude's coming. Like he's just so good, and I mean, and he's a voice of one of the Ninja Turtles.
Yeah. It's like he does have a resounding voice. Like his voice has a presence. It's just not when he sings.
I just know, like around that time period, the Stand By Me, that's his schedule is huge because he was doing Goonies and Friday the 13th Part 4 at the exact same time. Like he would literally do Goonies one day, fly over here, do Friday the 13th that day, fly back and do Goonies, and
for this character, it fit him well because he was suffering trauma with his family and in his real life. But those in the opening,
that wasn't exciting.
I do that every time.
Whoa!
You just don't know when. But like the
That's what she said.
in the opening where he's reading the magazine, like those back cover 25 cent, like send this in for. I love those things way back in the day. Like it was just like the stupid novelty.
Yeah,
stuff.
like the decoder rings and
It's like get the
sea monkeys.
snake in a bag. Ah, fuck, dude. That's the only thing I got caught stealing as a kid was sea monkeys.
You would.
But yeah, I miss those magazines with like the little ads at the back.
I guess, I mean, that's the thing with this movie is like, I guess I don't see much of my childhood in it. My friends and I were adventurous and did stuff, but it's just like,
I see myself in like a lot of movies, like
I don't know, like
Boys in the Hood. Man, that was me. Like
I could see that. Yeah,
Barbershop.
Friday.
yeah, I miss those.
Would you have changed anything in the movie, Justin?
Yes, the story that Gordy tells. It seemed like a movie inside of a movie where they lard ass. I don't know if that was necessary. Like
yeah, I didn't quite.
It tells a story, you get the visual of it, but it's a break, and maybe it's so long of a break before it comes back. It's like, what happened next? And
if I'm being honest, that's the part of the movie where my attention was gone for the longest time.
I felt like it could have been a shorter story and continued with the boys' story.
Mm-hmm.
There was I'm going to get into it now. There was a part where they flipped 4 tails simultaneously. What are the odds? What are the odds of 4 tails? And
50-50.
a tail in general, it kind of denotes the sensuous separated, like you're separated from your senses and to be removed from the senses, which it's fixes its direction downward to the earth. The tail does. It's away from the heaven, and the beast or the animals, they look to the earth, and man looks to the heavens. And the boys were they were wanting the attention that they deserved, and Gordy wanting that recognition outside his brother's shadow, and Teddy to be more than a family of loonies, and Chris to be respected instead of grouped with his family's mistakes, and Vern to be not just a fat kid or a blunt of the jokes. They were wanting to turn the heads, to flip the coin, to look to the sky and experience the inner growth for the Lord and his Son towards the heads of the angels. Do you hear me, Brother Lonnie? The angels are lifted up, and he who is lifted upward by the Lord wills what is good and thinks what is true. And from this a removal from the evils and the falsities, for this is the way of the righteousness and the immovable word. And it might all sound like bullshit at this point, but I assure you there is much to be absorbed in these words I preach to you.
Hararura.
Brother Jeremy, do you feel the words I am shining down on you? If you can't, I want you to take a firm hand around my rod and let me guide you. And to you, Brother Lonnie,
been there the whole time.
If I put 4 coins in your right hand, now could you give me head?
You want to get that shit back.
Turn it, flip it heads. They rolled foot. Never mind. Just keep going.
That
How do you follow that up?
that was special.
Do you know
like this?
the Castilian Spanish version of this?
No, you're just over you
do it.
you lost it.
So Gordy, it's kind of like Gordo, which is fat, a fat person.
Gordo.
Yeah, Gordo. So they called him corny in the Spanish, the Castilian version. It's like, I don't know if that's any better.
They called him
Corny.
Corny?
Yeah. Like it is supposed to be short for Cornell.
Oh.
It's like, why don't you just call him Gordon instead of Gordy in the Spanish version?
So there is one thing I would change about this movie.
Uh-oh.
Hey, Lord ass.
Exactly.
Chow down.
It irritates me a little bit that they're calling this kid Lardass and all these people, and they put him in this big giant fat suit, and then they're like, "There's this kid they call him Lardass. He was like 180 pounds." I'm like, "Fuck you!" Like if that kid's 180, then like I must be hideous at 205.
That was a fat suit?
Maybe, I don't know.
That's why he's 180. Yeah, no, it kind of looked. I couldn't tell if it was a fat suit. Yeah. For the practical effects back then, I don't know if they had fat suits down that well.
No.
That was
they didn't even have it down in the 90s.
That was some of the best fake projectile vomiting though I have ever seen.
Really?
It looked real to me.
Yeah.
All purple, everybody's was in sync.
And the fact that it was like way over here, and not
Coming out of their
coming out of their
Like the
throat.
good Saturday Night Live style vomiting where that comes out of their sleeve.
You know, one thing about how they didn't realize what this movie was, they really didn't even have like a premiere for it.
No.
Jerry O'Connell said that he went to a small movie theater with his, I think, grandma and grandpa, and they were the only ones. This is like opening weekend of it. They were the only ones in the theater. And when the movie got done, the lady that worked the theater looked at Jerry O'Connell and was like, "Were you the boy that was in the movie?" And he's like, "Yeah." So she gave him their money back. She's like, movie stars don't have to pay here. And like he said, his grandpa gloated about that for the rest of his life, about how they didn't have to pay to watch their grandson in a movie and this and that. But I mean, that's just kind of crazy that what this movie is nowadays, how much more of a classic it's become than when it first came out. Like, they didn't realize what they had back then.
Yeah, opening weekend, it only made $242,000 on an $8 million budget.
Jeez.
I mean, worldwide now, like, it's well over the $50 million mark. But yeah, opening weekend of an $8 million budget barely made $240,000, which with the cast it had, I mean, I guess a lot of those people weren't
anything.
Weren't
Yeah,
their names
just kinda
yet.
put 'em-
But
Yeah, I remember O'Connell was saying something like it was a year or two after its wrap that it became a hit. It's like most of the people thought, yeah, you'll just do this and then go on to do something else. And this is just filling a spot.
It's kind of weird because you think of these movies that, like Jerry O'Connell, I always think of him and Jerry Maguire as Cushman.
Oh, yeah.
And the thing is that movie, Jerry Maguire doesn't seem like it's that old of a movie to me. And he looks like Jerry O'Connell looks like he's like in his like 30s in that movie. But in reality, that was like not even 10 years after Stand By Me was made. Because 86 for Stand By Me, and I think Jerry Maguire was 95, 96 when it came out. And it's just like he went from, in 10 years, he went from a small pudgy kid to this built.
Well, it wasn't even a year after. Like, he did lose much of the weight.
yeah, 96 for
Well,
Jerry Maguire.
he actually wasn't that big.
Yeah,
Because
he
that
wasn't.
scene when they take their shirts and stuff off, it's like,
Hey, just
a regular
he
looking boy.
had baby fat, like it's all it was.
real life boy.
yeah, I'm assuming it was probably like a year after that movie. He probably just had that growth spurt. And,
Well, he had a trainer. His mom went to a gym and they had like a trainer who helped him out with like, writing down his stuff. And he learned that at an early age. And like, what was that one movie where they superimposed another version of him? They were like twin jocks who were, was it not another TV? Or it was something like that. I want to say, what was it? It doesn't matter.
Yes, it does. It does to me.
It does to me. It's still real to me.
Yeah,
That was-
whatever.
Well, boys, I think that's wrapping it up for us for the night.
You think so?
Yeah, next episode's gonna be yours, Sir Justin. What you thinking?
It's kind of been taking me a while to decide on something, and I think I am going to do 2005's Killzone, starring Donnie Yen and Sammo Hung, my Chinese pappy.
Is this subtitles?
See,
Oh boy.
I mean, she.
Oh no. Well, and after that episode, the next BPT movie review after yours, we will have another special guest. As of right now, it's a old friend of mine I haven't seen for a while, who's a movie fanatic, Joe O'Connor.
Since you were 12 years old.
Yes, we'll announce what his movie is on our next episode.
Nice. Well, everybody, thank you for listening. We appreciate it all, and we will hear from you next time.
Don't go out like that. Go out strong. This is your favorite movie, right?
Okay, let's go out strong. Goodbye, everybody. Thank you so much. We'll hear from you next week. Eat it.
Oh, and in case I don't see you, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. This concludes our broadcast day. Click.